Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in, quote-unquote, the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth-busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
World.
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hello, and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks how would we react to the same events if they transpired today. I'm your co-host, Sadaf Hassan.
And I'm your other co-host, Sarah Sahagian. And this week we're talking about a multi-hyphenate talent who has become a magnet for controversy over the course of her varied career in comedy. That's right, we are finally doing an episode on Mindy Kaling. So I came to be a hardcore Mindy Kaling fan when I read her 2011 memoir, Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me? Which is a question I often ask myself. I had always enjoyed The Office, where Mindy portrayed the winsome, to me anyway, Kelly Kapoor. But when I read her memoir, I felt seen. I really felt like we would be best friends if we met in person, and I don't know if that's true, but at the time I felt that. I too love cupcakes, Irish goodbyes, and complicated romantic relationships full of sexual tension. Our parasocial relationship felt meant to be, and only intensified when the Mindy Project premiered in 2012. I once had an entire romantic relationship where the only common interest we had was rewatching the Mindy Project, and we somehow managed to date for 4 whole months, and it was built on that foundation alone. So, Sadaf, when did you discover Mindy Kaling, and what are your feelings about her?
Remember you telling me that about that relationship? I love that so much. Okay, I've been a fan. Well, I've had a complicated trajectory, I'll be honest. So I had a very similar trajectory of fanhood for her. I also really enjoyed her on The Office, and I was always so amazed that she was a writer as well as a cast member. I thought that was so cool. She was also the first South Asian woman who I had ever seen being on TV like she was, writing a book like she was about her life, but also being in the comedy world. This was just not something that we'd had before. She was really the first in so many ways, and I found her so funny. I also love her love for enemies to lovers plot lines, which I adore so much. She's such a rom-com fan, as am I, so I just connected with her so deeply, and I loved the Mindy Project so much. I am due a rewatch, actually, but I will say more recently I've struggled with my fanhood. We're going to get into it a little bit, so I might save my thoughts, but I've just become I just feel like she, it's a lot when you have this person who you see as your kind of, I don't want to call her my hero, but like she really was on a pedestal for a lot of South Asian women as the one of very few who was able to do things and show us that we could get to that level. And that's a lot to put on one person, obviously. And she hasn't been the greatest representation, I think, in that regard. And that's been a little bit tough, but I also feel bad about it because it's too much to expect from one person. But again, we'll get into it.
Yeah, she's what Shonda Rhimes calls the first only different, right? There's a lot of pressure put on them. And she was that, and of course for the South Asian community, but also she was on TV at a time when there weren't a lot of, like, this is so weird, but a lot of mid-sized women on TV.
It's not weird. It's huge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So she was a lot for a lot of people, I think. Like for a lot of people. And it was just clearly not something she wanted. And I don't blame her. Like, it's not, you don't want to have to bear the weight of everybody's hopes and dreams on your shoulders.
Absolutely. It's so true. And I think when she was coming out and she had like this period where the Mindy Project came out, she put her book out, she was on she was in headlines. She was on TV all the time. She had that romance with BJ Novak everybody was so curious about. So it was definitely a very buzzy era for her. And I know it was complicated for her. So I reckon with that, I hear that. But I still have my feelings, but we'll get into it.
So let's go back to the very beginning of Mindy's life. So she was born Vera Mindy Chokalingam. I don't think I pronounced that correctly, and I practiced, and I'm really sorry. Anyway, just Mindy, if you're listening to this, know that I am trying, and I think that you're wonderful. Well, also complicated. But anyway, so I'm going to refer to her by her stage name, Mindy Kaling. Kaling was raised in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Her family immigrated to the United States the year Mindy was born, where her father worked as an architect and her mom was an OBGYN. The middle name Mindy, which is the name that now is famous, because I feel like she's one of those celebrities where you can just say her first name and people know who she is. So that was bestowed on the top because the family, they were already in the process of immigrating and they wanted an American name and they were fans of the American sitcom Mork and Mindy. So she was named after a sitcom character. Obviously, comedy was her destiny.
I know. And that sitcom in particular, I just love that that's what they chose. That's like this really adorable Robin Williams sitcom from way back. Well, I shouldn't say really adorable. It's very divisive. But
it's really divisive.
Yeah. But that's hilarious.
It's also fitting because her comedy is divisive. So it's actually fitting that she was named after a divisive sitcom. Had she been named Lucy, like that's so universally beloved, I think she might be a different person.
That's so true. Yes.
Mindy's education was quite privileged. So she graduated from Buckingham Brown, which is an elite prep school in the Boston area. And tuition there today is $64,000 a year for high school. I have met kids who go there. It's a wonderful school. I've met teachers who taught there. It's a fantastic school. It's very elite. Like this is top-notch elite education in America.
Wow.
Mindy has said that, quote, my whole childhood was like, work hard, be quiet, respect elderly people, respect your parents, and just be unobtrusive. So Kaling has said that it was, quote, her childhood dream to work at SNL. And she actually later got a job offer, but they just wanted her to be a writer. They didn't want her to be on camera. So she turned it down, which I respect.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of funny how life works out that way. And her education from the beginning makes it clear that she was willing to work hard to get what she wanted. She secured a spot at Dartmouth, an Ivy League university, where she studied playwriting. So she also wrote for Dartmouth's humor magazine, which probably inspired more than one storyline for Bella on The Sex Lives of College Girls. Yeah, that felt very autobiographical.
Yeah.
So, Sadaf, does Mindy Kaling's life sort of prove the controversial 10,000 hour rule? That theory popularized by Malcolm Gladwell that you had to put in 10,000 hours of practice to become truly genius level at something. I mean, Mindy Kaling put in the work young. She studied playwriting. She wrote for this humor magazine. She's wanted to be on SNL from a young age. Do we feel like she started in comedy so young because she was determined? And do we feel like that's part of what gave her an advantage?
That's a good question. Well, listen, and I'm sorry to people who hate hearing this, but I'm probably going to bring it up a bunch of times this episode. But when you are a person of color, you have to work about 10 times harder just to get half the recognition. So she definitely put in all of the time. Like, it's fascinating to me that as someone who's essentially a comedian, she has the educational background to the nth degree for that. Like, that's not the most common thing. So that's just the way it goes, because I love that quote even where she's talking about when she was younger and in prep school and how her parents kind of led her to be this kid who the key thing was you just have to work really, really hard. And that is how a lot of brown people grow up. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's also very true for a lot of us. And that you are taught to be that kid, that the older you get, you will get the things that you want as so long as you keep your head down, you get straight A's, you work really hard, you get the job you want. What's really interesting, I am so curious always. I mean, she gets a little bit into her book, but not too deeply, but just how her parents felt about her choosing comedy of all things. But I will also say what's so fascinating is she's also part of this group, speaking of SNL, of Ivy League gentlemen who end up in comedy, having gone to Harvard, Princeton, Dartmouth too. And it's a very interesting little clique that I find very fascinating. And it's interesting, too, that she's one of the few women who's in it. And on top of that, one of the very few POC who's in it. So I don't know. I think she did it the way that we've been taught to do it. And I kind of love that she worked so damn hard and also held out for like the thing that she really wanted. It's incredible to me to this day that she said no to SNL.
I really respect her confidence.
Me too.
And one thing that I often say, I mean, she has that quote, your own personal motto should be, why not me? And I try to say that to myself. What I really like about Mindy Kaling is, and I've never met her in real life, but her public persona is someone who has zero imposter syndrome. And I quite like that about her.
Me too.
I've always respected that. So, I mean, I think that she's like an advertisement for the value of hard work, but she's also an advertisement for the value of privileged education. Like her parents researched schools. They sent her to a great prep school. They worked hard to do this, right? I mean, because they were people, they'd immigrated. Yes, they had professional high-paying jobs, but still, you're starting from scratch when you immigrate. Like that's still a choice to spend all of your money on elite education. So I feel like, yes, her story is interesting because it's a mix of really, really intense privilege and also a lot of discrimination and setbacks and other barriers, right? So it's a mix of privilege and barriers. And she took advantage of all the opportunities she was given, which not every privileged kid does, right? And so that's important, right? She really worked hard, and that's something no one can ever dispute. No one can ever say that Mindy is not a diligent, hardworking person. I don't care if you don't like her. That's not a criticism you can ever make about this person.
And to this day, that's the thing that I love about her the most. Like, still, she's such a hustler.
Absolutely. I mean, she always has multiple jobs. As somebody who has multiple jobs, I really, really relate to this.
Yes.
Why have just one job?
Truly. Why sleep?
Why sleep? Why sleep?
Who needs that?
No one. After university, Kaling moved to New York City, where she and her friends tried to break into show business, and they actually did that pretty quickly. To support herself, Mindy, for a time, worked as a nanny for a little girl, a job she talks about in Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me? And she says she killed it as a nanny in part because of her love of boy bands. She would discuss them with her little charge and her love of kids' snack food. In fact, she was worried about getting in trouble for like eating too much of the kids' snack food.
I love that. And I believe it.
Kids' snack food is delicious. You forget that until you have a kid or become a nanny and you're like, why did I stop eating these things? Dunkaroos rock.
Oh, I love Dunkaroos.
Exactly. So it didn't take the hardworking Mindy very long at all to get her big break. Shortly after graduating from uni, Mindy and Brenda Withers, her friend, created a New York City fringe festival show called Matt and Ben, which reimagined how Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote the Oscar-winning script for Good Will Hunting. And I love this. It's such an unhinged idea. It's brilliant.
Yes.
So in the 2002 play, Kaling portrayed Ben Affleck. Her friend Brenda portrayed Matt Damon. And it's fun because they were best friends and they were playing best friends.
Yeah.
Time magazine actually named it one of the top 10 theatrical events of the year. So it was pretty groundbreaking. I haven't seen it, but I've heard from people who have that it was just side-splittingly hilarious.
I know.
Like,
I'm so envious
funny.
because this is like this is my favorite part of Mindy's lore. And as someone who is obsessed with Ben Affleck, as all Reheat listeners know well, I wish so badly. Like, I hope one day she and Brenda just reenact it or something. I just love it.
So when asked about the play in a 2025 interview with the Paley Media Council, sorry, I always say Paley, it's Paley, Mindy admitted that Ben Affleck doesn't love her portrayal of him. And she commented, "For the record, he's not like crazy about it." She does, however, count herself fortunate that he didn't sue her.
God bless. Honestly, that's
amazing. And as
amazing.
somebody who, like, I'm very concerned about how litigious the culture of America is, I don't even think I would have staged this play. I would have been too frightened. So kudos to her for being so brave.
Honestly, it's amazing we haven't been sued at the Reheat yet. Knock on wood.
Okay, knock on all the wood.
Sorry, I'll edit it out.
All right.
I've been sued as a culture writer before, so it's not unlikely.
I know. So many people get sued. I know. Yeah, absolutely. So after Matt and Ben gave Kaling serious credibility as a comedy writer, she relocated to Los Angeles, where she worked as a writer-performer on the U.S. adaptation of The Office. And one of my hot takes is I actually think that in some ways the U.S. adaptation is better than the British version. And I don't think the British version could ever have found enough material to last for as many seasons because Americans just get work, right? Because they spend so much time working. They spend so much more time working than you should, than other countries do. And so while your workmates should not be your family, in America they are. And so they get that. They get what it is to work with people. They get how zany it is, and they can mine it for a lot of humor. So that's one of my hot takes. I actually do think in some ways
I don't totally disagree with you. My Office hot take, I don't even know that it's a hot take, but because I like both, I find them to be so different because as you say, the mentality is different, but of course the American humor and the British humor is so different, and I love British humor, and I love that cast. It's just so different. It's very awkward. It's very uncomfortable. comfortable, the UK version, which I think it's meant to be, whereas the American version is uncomfortable in a way that is very American sitcom-y, right? Where we've seen before, but it's also wonderful. Like, I know that it's considered similarly to Harry Potter, which we spoke about previously. It's like, it's cliche now to be an Office fan. I don't give a shit. I love The Office. I've watched it so many times all the way through. I'll do it again soon. It's a flawless sitcom.
And you know what? I think that one of the things, it's not as dark as the British version. I love British humor,
true.
but it's not as dark because I think at the end of the day, these people all actually do love each other, and that's because they have to spend so much time together, right? And in Britain, you don't spend quite as much time with your colleagues.
That's a great point.
So I think you might just hate them. You don't come around to thinking that they're your family and that you love them unconditionally, right?
Yeah, the British vibe is more like, well, if my boss gets hit by a car tomorrow, maybe that's actually great for me.
It's fine. It's fine. Yep, that's the vibe. That's the vibe. So The Office is where Mindy Kaling met BJ Novak, the person many would say is her soulmate.
Many would say.
And it's funny because when we did the Gossip Girl episode, we talked about Mindy and BJ as like a real life version of Chuck and Blair. They were one of our examples. And I stand by that, right? I do stand by that.
That is the hottest take you've ever had.
My two examples were Charles and Camilla. King Charles and Queen Camilla, and BJ Novak and Mindy Kaling. I
want to see those people around a dinner table. My God.
Just talking about their complicated romance.
Yeah,
I feel like
course.
Charles and Camilla could mentor them and just be like, it's okay to finally end up together.
Yes, please.
Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Honestly, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very complicated romance because for years, no one, not even Mindy and BJ, have been able to define what they mean to each other.
Yeah.
They have this gravitational pull. Like, they can't stay apart. They have this transcendent relationship that you can't label. Even when they're not in a relationship, you still see them as a pair, even if they're not a couple, right?
Yes.
I don't know. It's fascinating. It's the type of relationship most adults don't have.
No.
It's kind of a teenage relationship, but I do ship them like everybody else does. Even though I don't like BJ, I find him really annoying, but I still want them to be together.
Well, that's part of the thing, right? Like, I think BJ is probably kind of awful. I mean, he's been rumored to be dating Kieran Shipka of Mad Men for some time.
I know.
Now. They have a very significant age difference that makes him, come on, very predatory. There's just something about him I don't like and rubs me wrong. And Mindy's implied in the past that he's the one who couldn't get it together, and that also makes me, I don't know.
Yeah. She has said she would have married him at the time when they were dating, but she's also said that she would have married anyone at that time, that she was just like really into the idea of getting married at that point in her life. So I don't know, right? I mean, I don't know if that was just a joke or to try to downplay how in love with him she was.
Yeah.
So while their characters on The Office dated and even got engaged at one point, Mindy has said that she and BJ were, quote, never really dating. Isn't that so millennial? Like, that's just...
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet they were also inseparable and acted a lot like a couple and still do. There was constant fighting, making up, constantly hanging out together at parties and work events. And people who worked on The Office said that they were pretty much always together. And they've even created a tradition of attending the Vanity Fair Oscars party together.
I loved that.
What says life partner more than that, right? Like,
oh God, Sarah, you're reminding me how much I shipped these two together. Listen, guys, I was an obsessive Mindy fan for quite some time. Like, every fact Sarah's sharing right now, I know it like the back of my hand. It's wild. And I'm remembering how much I wanted these two together. God, yeah. I mean, every time they take those photo booth photos at a Vanity Fair party, I was like, those two, they got heat. They got heat. Get it together, kids. What's the problem?
So in 2023, BJ Novak presented Mindy Kaling with a prize at the Producers Guild Awards and had this to say about the relationship they shared on The Office. We were in love with each other and we were reckless idiots. And the two of us would argue about all these things forever. So they were in love. They just weren't officially dating, which, like, I don't know.
Sarah,
a lot of millennial men are like that.
I know.
Well, you know, that's so many men.
It's men I've known. It's men you've known. It pisses me off.
It's also like, returning to the Gossip Girl reference, that is Chuck and Blair. He refuses to call her his girlfriend until he proposes, basically.
Yeah, I know. It's really fascinating to me. I don't get it because a part of me, of course, I've got a whole narrative in my mind, and I also don't know these two, but that he's like refusing to claim her after all these years. It's very Kate and Leo, in my opinion. Kate, as we know, who very clearly has been foaming at the mouth in love with Leo for many years, which Leo does not deserve. He's a modelizer.
No.
He's probably a douche. Kate is still so like perfect in every way.
Yeah, she can do better.
She could do way better, although she herself has a very checkered dating history or marriage history.
She's bad taste. I'm going to say she does not have great taste.
She's got real bad taste in men. Leo being one of them, and he never seems to emulate her love the way she does. She has also made many speeches on stage about how much she loves this man, and I don't hear that from Leo. Like, why don't you claim her, sir? I bet you drop everything. Like, I don't know.
Okay, so one of my best friends went to the premiere of Revolutionary Road in England years ago. We were at the LC together. This sketchy guy that she didn't really want to date was like, do you want to come to the premiere with me? And she sucked it up because she wanted to go. And she said that she thought Leo was in love with Kate at the time because he was telling everyone like, she's going to win an Oscar for this movie. She's amazing. She's incomparable. She's the best. Don't sue me, Leo. I wasn't actually even there. I'm going to admit this. This is what my friend told me about going to this event with this sketchy guy, who she later, like right after, just said she didn't want to see him again. She broke up with him right after.
Good for her. She got what she needed.
Yeah, exactly. Good for her. Like,
I do the same.
If you're a hot 22-year-old, like, go do that. If a predator asks you to a party, tell your friends where you're going, go to the Hollywood party, then sneak out, get an Uber home, and you've got a story. Make
that
sure
is getting edited out.
Sure, that should get edited out. That's really bad life advice. That's essentially what she did.
I'm kidding. All these bits are staying in. All these bits are staying in. No, but I'm with you. I feel like maybe they've gone back and forth. It's also, so many of us have different radars when it comes to what is love. But listen, these people have subjected their chemistry to us for all these years. Give us something. I need closure. Anyway, Sarah,
I know. And their bond is still strong because BJ is the godfather of Mindy's children.
I love that.
He's even dressed up as Santa Claus for them at the holidays.
Yeah.
I have to say, he seems like he's pretty good with kids. His book, The Book with No Pictures, is a good children's book. Like, normally celebrity children's books are terrible. This one's good, and I do believe he wrote it. It is his sense of humor. But they still can't make it work. Everyone ships them, even Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore interviewed Mindy Kaling a couple years ago on her show and was just like, why can't you get it together? Like, basically, like, I want you guys to be together so badly.
But that actually checks out because Drew is like a lovesick romantic like us all.
Yeah, Drew is definitely a romantic for sure. So, Sadaf, why do you think we are all so obsessed with Mindy and BJ? Do you think they will ever end up together? Are they just friends? Why is society so uncomfortable with a relationship that transcends definition? Because even you and I are uncomfortable with this relationship that defies categorization.
I actually think there's such a great irony to all of this, right? That Mindy is this fan of these particular kinds of romantic plot lines and dynamics, particularly enemies to lovers. These two kind of had that. Like when they started on The Office, they had tension. Over time, they became best buddies. They've been clearly on and off. Like I think anyway, like these two have hooked up many a time. I feel like it might be one of those things where they just have a little bit of chemistry forever, but they don't get it together until like maybe they're in old age. And maybe we never even really hear about it. Like which I hate. I want to know every detail. And maybe she'll write like some kind of book years and years and decades from now where she gives us a little bit more dirt. But I don't know. I find it kind of heartbreaking. But at the same time, I must say, and being older now that I am, I don't put them on as much of a pedestal anymore because I think she deserves someone who will claim her and who loves her just as much as she loves him. Honestly, I don't want that to be this basic ass white boy who I don't think is actually as funny, even half as funny as her, and maybe, as you even said, like a little bit of a predator. Like, forget me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if The Office had premiered today in our different climate, I don't think people would ship them as much, right? Because the minute it turned out that he was refusing to call her his girlfriend and he was behaving shady like this, I think now we're starting to hold men to higher standards. And if somebody's going to be your parasocial favorite couple, they have to actually be a couple, right? I think that today, if we had become attached to them today, it would have been short-lived. But it's because we have this residual obsession with them that we still want them to be together. But no, he is not up to the standards of modern dating. He is a jerk. Like, honestly, like seriously, not okay behavior.
No.
Yeah.
We wish better for you, Mindy. And you know what? It's interesting too, though, that we don't. I mean, she doesn't really have much of a dating history out in public. Like, she's so private.
Yeah.
As you said, we don't know who the father of her children is, though you and I have speculated about this endlessly and
many
deliciously. I always thought that it had to be like an IVF situation, like a donor or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's many rumors everywhere. I don't think it's BJ. All of you clowns who are still holding on that it's BJ, it's not BJ. It's not. I don't think so. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right?
I go back
because I just don't see him. Well, you know what? I guess, I don't know. If he's someone who doesn't want his own children, then maybe. But to be as close as they are, to be the kid's godfather, to go all that way, but then again, not claim them.
I know, but lots of guys will give you their sperm. This is a real thing. I've had male friends tell me, like, if I ever needed their sperm, this is like when I was really young. Wow. So we did not know how life was going to shake out. It was like, I'll just give it to you. And I was like, I don't need it.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not asking for it, but good to know that's on the table.
The sperm is on the table. Okay.
I feel like BJ is one of those guys who thinks a lot of himself, wants his genetic material to continue, but doesn't want to be a father. And so I actually could see him being like, perfect, you raise my kids for me, I'll be their godfather, I'll be like Uncle BJ.
Yeah
Right. I actually
knew
I'm starting to think he might be the father. I'm now starting. I did for a long time. I didn't think he was, and now I think he is. But anyway, I think it's time for an ad break.
God damn.
We will be right back.
Take this time to guess who the father is.
And listen to the ad. So while it is nearly impossible for us navel gazers to know what Mindy and BJ mean to each other at any given moment, we do know that after The Office, Mindy Kaling kept getting bigger professionally. When the Mindy Project premiered in 2012, it marked the first time an Indian woman played the title role on an American sitcom. The show ran for 6 seasons and followed fictional Mindy's life as an obstetrician who also had a very complicated relationship with a coworker portrayed by Chris Messina. So, you know, sometimes art imitates life. The Mindy Project was an homage to the romantic comedies Mindy grew up loving. You've Got Mail and When Harry Met Sally are among her favorites. And you can see the DNA of that in the series. You definitely can. For the record,
makes such clear references constantly.
Yes.
Those are my 2 favorites. So, love it.
Mine too. Two of my favorites as well. For the record, my favorite episode is the one where she goes clubbing in season 1 with her assistant, who's also Penelope from Gossip Girl, who, by the way, is actually a really good comic performer. What happened to that woman?
She is. Well, you know what? One of the biggest problems with the Mindy Project, and again, we'll get into this, is that she never really had any women in her life apart from the first season, which was an issue.
Well, yeah, they kept getting rid of the female cast members.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to all of them, but yeah, that was an issue. While the Mindy Project made me laugh out loud each week, it wasn't without its controversies. From Reddit to TV critics, the show received a lot of flack for the fact that while TV Mindy dated a lot, like this woman dated a lot, Carrie Bradshaw levels of dating. It was almost always white guys she went out with. This inspired a tweet from Mindy Kaling herself. Someone write an article about white leads on shows who won't date outside their race. You've got plenty of options. I dare you. It's not a bad point. It also doesn't refute the fact that she was only writing in white love interest for herself.
Yeah, that is an awful tweet. God, Mindy, Jesus.
So, Sadaf, how do we feel about Mindy's response to the backlash against the lack of diversity on her show? Would the backlash have been less or more intense if the series had aired today?
Oh God, I think would have been way worse now. The Mindy Project wasn't that long ago, but like I do think it would have been way worse now. But also her response was horrific. Like there's a reason. There's a big difference between shows with white casts versus your own show. And you know, we talked off the top about how unfair it is to put so much expectation on someone who is the first of so much. However, I do think you do have a little bit of responsibility. I'm sorry. And Mindy is not someone who is out there with like a little indie film. She's on one of the biggest networks in America. We were on The Office. You have these books out. You are like one of the biggest names in TV. You can do this. In the history of the Mindy Project, she dated one brown man. And that episode was more of like a lesson for the viewers, I felt, because part of the conversation they have is about dating in or out of your race. And you know what? It's frustrating too because he was probably the most gorgeous man she ever went on a date with.
Yeah, he was
too.
super hot.
Right? And then she had one other man of color, and that was about it. And I find this so maddening. And listen, I'm all for dating a ton and a man per episode. Hell yes, get it, Mindy. That was her character's whole thing. But it's very strange to me that of however many episodes, only 2 had men of only 1 had a brown. I have so many personal issues with this. I think it was such a letdown to so many people who were watching and rooting for her. And I still love that show. As I said, I'm going to watch it again soon, but I think the backlash was fair to a certain degree. And I think she did have a little bit of responsibility. I'm sorry. That's part of the deal. That is how it goes. I think it's very unusual also that a lot of these love interests, and you and I have talked about this so much, seemed to mirror her own in real life, right? Like the BJ Novaks will never leave us be. Chris Messina, my favorite Chris of all time, plays a little bit of a BJ. We have the same thing as you mentioned in Sex Lives of College Girls. Every show that Mindy gives us, there is some kind of parallel. And it makes me a little sad for her because I'm like, when are you going to get over this? Because I want something different and I know you can deliver.
The thing that really surprises me is like, it's not like there weren't a lot of Indian performers and South Asian performers and performers in color who had comedy chops, right? It's not like right? Like that's the thing.
Oh my God,
It's so limiting because there were so many people who would have been hilarious and also really hot, right? That she could have put on the show. I mean, Mindy loved to, and I would do the same thing, set her up with a variety of sexy men, like sexy in lots of different ways, because the character didn't really have a type beyond white. Like that was an interesting thing.
Yes, like even in The Office, they bring Cynthia Ramamurthy in for that brief period towards the end, remember? And then she sort of just ditches him at the last minute for BJ. And that man is gorgeous. And again, like she brought him in for Never Have I Ever, where we see the lead character again having a parallel relationship to BJ. And again, we have a man of color who's like also half white, who also like they've got an age gap and it's weird, but that's not the one it goes towards. It's so confounding to me, Sarah.
It is confounding. The rendition I like the best of that relationship is the one on Never Have I Ever. I actually feel like
me too.
As written, those characters, and it's because they're teens, right? So if you're acting like a BJ when you're a teen, it's okay because that's normal development. But when you're in extended adolescence as a man in your 30s, it's less cute. So I actually really like the relationship in Never Have I Ever. Right? It's appropriate for a teen show, but I think that's probably how BJ
spot on.
In his 40s.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Oh my God. The madness of it all. Yes. Carry on. We're never going to get resolution from this, I fear. Unless she falls deeply in love with another dynamic in her own life.
No. So I think it's time for another break. Well, Mindy's life didn't become any less of a lightning rod for gossip as her star rose, because as the Mindy Project was wrapping up, she was starting her next chapter as a mother. In 2017, Kaling brought home her firstborn child, daughter Kit, and drove the entire world crazy by not telling us who the dad was. And to be fair, I also really want to know, even though it's none of my business.
I know. Me too.
And Kaling herself has a really good reason for keeping the identity secret, which is that she hasn't been able to discuss it with her kids yet because they're little. And that makes ton of sense, and yet people still care about the baby daddy. You can, if you just Google who's Mindy Kaling's baby daddy, you'll get tons of hits and recent articles. People are still talking about this all the time, right?
Oh, it will happen forever.
It will happen forever. So, Sadaf, why do you think we are so obsessed with the identity of the father of Mindy Kaling's children? Because tons of women are single mothers, and I don't think are as obsessed as we are with Mindy's baby daddy.
I think it's the same thing we were saying before. I think it's just like the plot lines that she loves, and we love those plot lines. So why wouldn't we love the real life version? Like, I'm always going to want to know. It's so interesting. And if it was just like a donor situation, then I feel like that would be simpler to say rather than herself kind of make it this big reveal for years down the line. But I think it's fair to be like, I got to tell my kids first in a different kind of way. You know, I get it.
Yeah, I don't think, some people think she's just doing this for publicity, and I don't think at all. I think that's completely unfair.
Yeah.
Okay. So motherhood didn't end Mindy Kaling's career. she has produced many, many hits. In fact, she just keeps getting bigger and bigger. From Never Have I Ever on Netflix, a show I love. I think it's hilarious.
Me too, deeply.
To the Sex Lives of College Girls, which is actually, I think, my personal favorite. I really love that one. I really feel I can relate to that show on so many levels. And of course, she's also produced the more recent Netflix Running Point, which I don't love, but many people do, and I'm happy for all of you.
I don't mind it. I enjoy it. I watched it all the way through. It could be better. But she brought Kate Hudson back to the screen, which I will always be thankful for.
I think it's just that I'm not a Kate Hudson fan, and there are other people in the cast I like better, and I just wish that they were centered. Like I prefer Brenda Song. I mean, Justin Theroux is perhaps the sexiest man to have ever lived. So I mean, I'm all for having him be in a show.
He very oddly is so sidelined in that show, huh? Yeah, you're right. I think he might have a bigger part next season, though. Brenda, I want way more of. Brenda, I want to see star in something, but that's a different story.
Yeah. I mean, at least her personal life is blissful. She and Macaulay Culkin seem super in love.
God, yes.
So Mindy also voiced Velma in HBO Max's Velma, a poorly conceived animated series that focused on, you guessed it, Velma from Scooby-Doo. In this iteration, Velma is lesbian, and that was controversial because Mindy herself does not identify as queer. It also just it's a weird IP to decide to develop and bring back. Like no one asked for this.
Can I just say, though, because I know there was so much controversy, people were so mad about this, but I actually really liked it. I thought it was quirky. It was different. I thought it was like a fun kind of campy idea of what Velma's inner life is like. And I don't think it was Mindy trying to be her. I think she just was voicing her, and she did a great job voicing her, in my opinion. But, you know, this is also part of a larger conversation where people just generally, in a very kind of Lena Dunham way, have turned on Mindy in a way that I don't completely agree with, because it feels like that's a different thing, where people have taken all these different excuses, combined them together, and like, we don't like Mindy anymore. In fact, we really hate her. And I feel like that has a lot to do with the fact that she's a brown woman, that for a long time she was a larger woman. And I don't know, I have problems with that too. But
Yep. Oh, she's definitely being held to a higher standard in a similar way that like Lena Dunham is held to an impossible standard. You're right.
Oh,
like,
God, yes.
It's ridiculous. However, perhaps the biggest controversy swirling around Mindy as of late is rumors she's on Ozempic. After years of being criticized for her size 8 frame, Mindy has now showed up on red carpets looking very lean, which has fans and haters suspecting Kaling has joined the legion of celebs who inject themselves with Ozempic to get skinny. According to Distractify, there are even rumors that Kaling hosts Ozempic parties, which, like, what is an Ozempic party? I'm fascinated. In a 2023 interview with Allure, Kaling addressed the speculation surrounding her weight loss when asked how being skinny all of a sudden might be seen as at odds with her previous status as a body positive icon. And Kaling responded, "It's not super exciting for me to talk about my body and how it's analyzed, so I think I'm just not going to get into it because it takes over the conversation, unfortunately, and people take it so personally." I feel like that's fair, right? Like, it's her body. And that's the thing with body positive icons, right? Then we develop such an attachment to them. And it's almost like, because we all have terrible self-esteem, like if they change their body and it doesn't look like our body anymore, and that's just too much pressure to put on anyone. So, Sadaf, why are people so obsessed with whether Mindy is or isn't on Ozempic?
I think it's a very personal thing. As someone who's also mid-size, and as she was for a long time, I loved the representation. However, I agree, it felt like a very extreme, sudden change. But at the same time, this woman was pregnant a couple times, and she hid her pregnancy very well. Like, we didn't even know that she had a baby bump. Like, you will only find a couple of paparazzi out there, photos of her out there with these baby bumps. So I think this is that parasocial side of it where we feel like we see every day of their lives and their bodies changing, and it's like, she could have done this any which way. And quite frankly, I'm also of the camp where if you are taking Ozempic, if that is the route that you're taking, I'm not going to judge you for that. There's such a complicated conversation when it comes to taking any kind of GLP to change your body type, and there's a lot of personal reasons people do it. A lot of the time people do it because they have things like PCOS or endometriosis. Like, we don't know everybody's personal stories. I find actually the judgment really nasty. I'm so glad you brought it up, Sarah, because I feel like Mindy's been the lightning rod for it for a while, and it disgusts me. And I think it goes back to this thing where people have on her where it doesn't matter what she does. As of like the last few years, she is going to be hated and reviled for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is we don't like it when women are as successful as Mindy is. She is a powerhouse. And we definitely don't like it when racialized women are are as successful as she is,
Right.
or when opinionated women are as successful as she is, right? She has a lot in
Yep.
common with, Shonda Rhimes and also Martha Stewart, right? Like there are just so many women who got too big for society's liking professionally, and now
Yep.
we just love to criticize them.
Yeah.
Which I guess in some ways you could take it as a compliment that you're that important, but it can actually cause you a lot of pain and suffering.
Yeah, and you know what? I like that you mentioned that bit about her being someone who's outspoken, because Kelly Kapoor, Mindy Lahiri on the Mindy Project, like these are characters who were always, they were not meant to be the most likable characters. I think people forget that. That was intentional, and I think that's why I loved them so much. You know, one thing I want to add in here too is with people being so hard on her, the other element of it too, and I don't know if you've seen this over the years, Sarah, is people even accusing her of bleaching her skin. She's a dark-skinned South Asian woman, and the conversation over her lightening her skin has been around forever.
Yeah.
And I also find it so ugly and nasty. Like, I don't know. I think people need to ask themselves, why are they putting all of this stuff at her feet so aggressively? And when will she be allowed to have a little bit of, I don't know, what is the word even? Some grace? Like, I don't think she's lightened her skin, for the record. I think that's a bullshit claim. Whatever. She clearly is a very private woman. Like, we don't know why she's made the decisions she has. All I know is she looks gorgeous. She looks damn good. And one thing I love about her is her style. It's very Sarah Jessica Parker. She's a great dresser. She takes risks. I will always love that about her. And I love that way that she's kind of, in this case, she's stayed very mum on whatever is happening in her personal life, and is very good at kind of walking around the block when it comes to actually answering the question. I think that's the way to do it.
Oh, yeah. So in 2025, Mindy Kaling still appears to be thriving, regardless of what anyone else thinks of her. And I love that about her. I love that she is still going to the Met Ball looking gorgeous, still creating her TV shows. I love that. She's unflappable, and whatever anyone else thinks about her. And even though she's imperfect, I will always respect how she doesn't have imposter syndrome and just keeps on going. But this brings us to our final segment. Hindsight is 2025, where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of today's show. So, Sadaf, what would you have done differently if you were Mindy?
I just wish she was always, this is going to be my one big thing, I want her to always be a little more supportive of other diverse talents. And I will say, she's gotten much better at it. Never Have I Ever was a really good example. That was a much more diverse cast. Running Point, I think, could use some work in that area.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Brenda Song, but I can see her character getting a little bit bigger over time. So I don't know. I think Mindy's getting a bit better. I'd like to see a little more improvements over time. I fucking hate the way she handled this in the Mindy Project era. It was a real bad misstep. But Sarah, what about you?
Probably what I would have handled differently, just because I feel like it was really limiting. Like, we got so many white guys who, like, some of them were really talented and great.
So great.
But
so
some
great.
of them some of them like shouldn't have been on the show. We're not really adding much.
Oh no.
Right. So I mean, it just felt like anti-meritocratic, where I'm like, why are we going with these mediocre white men?
I know.
Anyway, yeah. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. So, Sadaf, where can our listeners find you?
Well, before I share, I just want to say you know what? This has been really healthy for me because I realized I will always be a fan of this woman. She's done so much good stuff, things that I love. I just want to see her keep growing and evolving. We've been able to give other people who are not brown, who are not in her same world, so much more grace when it comes to that. So I'm also going to do that. I don't want to be as hard on her as I have been. I love you, Mindy. Just, do better. Do better.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you to all of our wonderful listeners. You can listen to more of The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. And you can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at Sahagian Sarah at Instagram. Sadaf, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me at _Sadaf Hassan on Twitter, although I'm barely ever on there. But I read my DMs, so send me a DM if you'd like. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you'd like us to keep growing, we would love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Reheat, where, by the way, you can suggest episodes that you want to hear, like anything you want. We are very open to it. So yeah, thank you for listening. Don't sue us.
Bye, guys.